Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the Growth Execution Podcast. We are here every week to talk to you about how you can launch, build, and grow your business. I'm delighted this week to be joined by Claire Chandler of Talent Boost. Hi there, Claire. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you today?
Very well indeed. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Wanted to start, if we could. We're kind of obsessed at the moment with launches, as you know. I wonder, how did you start out with your business? What drove you to get set up on your own?
Oh, what a great starting question. So my launch story begins 10 years ago. It was early in 2011, right around this time, and I was in what would turn out to be my last year in corporate America. After, by the way, swearing I was never going to work in corporate. It was too buttoned up for me. And, I was this free thinker coming out of college and, but lo and behold, that's where the opportunities were.
And how long did that period last? Just out of interest.
Close to 20 years. So,
okay,
never, so never say never, right? So that was sort of lesson number one. No, right. So, and I don't regret those years. I mean, I learned a lot, but, so 10 years ago, I am on an executive track. I was in a human resources, senior level role at the time. I was traveling all the time, which now I'm nostalgic for, of course, because now, we're not traveling terribly much. But, I was on the road constantly. And I'll make the story somewhat brief, but, long story short, I had some health issues that turned into some doctor's visits and a cancer diagnosis. And so in the spring of 2011, I had to go from, going 150 miles an hour to essentially zero. I had to take a month off of work, delegate everything to my wonderful team, and heal, right? Have surgery, have recovery, have treatments, et cetera. The end of the story is not that I still have cancer. I'm completely cancer-free now, which is wonderful. But the great thing about that experience was that it woke me up to the fact that I was not doing what I was passionate about. I was, you sort of get into this hamster wheel, right? And you get on this sort of people mover track that moves for you and not, not on your own volition. And in the quiet, in that month that I took off from that craziness, I really did a lot of soul searching, and I decided, okay, if this is not really what I'm passionate about, and the beauty of getting a cancer diagnosis is it wakes you up to the reality that life is too short to be, on that hamster wheel, right? And so I reflected a lot on, okay, if this is not it, then what is it, right? And so I spent a few months, I went back to work. I had some really good, candid conversations with the executive team, the company that I worked for. And we, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to go, take my shot, because if I wait for the better time, for me to save up more money, for me to gain more experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ironically, I said, I'm going to blink. It's going to be 10 years down the road. And now, of course, it is 10 years down the road, right? And I will have missed that window, that spark. And so later that year, so again, this was 2011, I left that corporate nest and I went out on my own. And I would love to tell you that I had a perfectly formulated plan for not only what I was going to do, but how I was going to be successful. And lo and behold, it was nothing like that, right? It was sort of this wish, this optimism, this dream, a brand new laptop. And I just went out in the world. And I spent the first 2 years or so, I would say, dabbling. And what I mean by that is I was really just trying to understand, of all the things that I could do, right? All the things I knew how to do, and I could figure out how to get somebody to pay me to do it as a freelancer, as a contractor, et cetera. What were the things I really wanted to do? What were going to move the needle for me? And so it took close to 2 years. And in September of 2013, I formed my company, Talent Boost, around the idea. So the tagline of Talent Boost is that talent is not born, it's boosted. And, it's this idea that anyone has it within them to play a bigger game, to lead in a more effective way, to have a more fulfilling career, to build a business around their passion. And you just have to tap into that. So that's, that's what I formed the business, the brand, the idea around, was that I could help you on an individual or a company basis unlock that magic.
Fantastic. And congratulations on 10 years, a decade outside of the corporate world. And
yes,
again, there's going to be so many people listening to this who are in that position, right? Who have been thinking perhaps over the extended lockdowns that we were talking about, that they've been thinking about reassessing, actually, what is it that I'm here to do? What do I want to do? What's going to be the fulfilling rest of time for me? And nobody really goes into this with a plan, right? Well, some people probably do, but in terms of executing on that exact plan, it is, I work with many businesses, and it's almost unheard of for anybody to really execute that well. You work with people a lot, you work with a number of businesses. I'm imagining that a lot of this is about the reactive stuff as well as the proactive stuff, right?
It is, and I completely echo what you say. Every especially entrepreneurs who by and large start out as solopreneurs, every single one of them that I have ever spoken to and worked with had some sort of transformational experience, transformative event. For me, it was cancer. For others, and it doesn't have to be a traumatic event, but it is something that shakes us out of just going through these automated motions from day to day to say, you know what, I'm not going to wait anymore. I'm not going to wait until I get better at this or more comfortable with that or have more money in the bank or I have fewer, obligations, whatever. And today is going to be the day. And that's the most important decision you have to make up front. Otherwise, you're never going to go for it, because just like, and all of those entrepreneurs, as you said, just like none of them really had a well thought out, well architected plan. They all had these other things holding them back. And it's that transformative event that finally propelled them to do it anyway. And for us now in this era of COVID, it's this shared global experience that can become your transformative event to finally do what it is in your heart to go out and do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, a load of people listening to this will be in exactly that spot. People have had more time than they probably ever had, really, to sit and think. Yes, there's a lot of busyness. People are trying to throw stuff at them. They're having to work from home and into areas of their lives and late into the evenings that they may not have had to do in the past. But similarly, that can drive a change in behavior and a change in outlook that means that they no longer want to work with a business that might do that to them.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think on the company side, they are experiencing that as well, because companies had to shift, they had to pivot, they had to reinvent how work got done. But I think they are also discovering that they can tap into the unique contributions of their employees in a different way, because out of necessity, they had to change the way the work got done.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that have businesses that are listening to this and they're looking to grow their businesses, clearly the people that they employ that are now starting to come out of this this imposed restrictive working patterns, how can employers try and harness better the experience that people have had over this period and help them to reacclimatize into the workplace?
Yeah, it's such an important question. And to that point, not everyone is destined for entrepreneurial business, right? But that does not mean that if you are an employee of a company that you have to put that fire out that is within you. And I think more and more employers are discovering through this era of COVID that they do have to look at their employees in a different way. And they're starting to look at their business in a different way, right? So I co-authored a book. You mentioned his name before. My good friend Ben Baker and I wrote this book about a year ago that sort of dealt with this this decision point that a lot of businesses, actually every company that survived the early months of COVID, that they were at, right? Which was, we could either ride this out and then go back to the way things were, which, spoiler alert, is the wrong decision, or you can pivot, right? And really take this opportunity to reevaluate where you are in the world, what what your business is designed to do. And I don't just mean your mission, although I truly do think your mission is foundational, whether you're a large company or a solopreneur. Your mission is foundational to everything else you do.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say that to a company, companies often say, oh yeah, we have a mission. We have a mission statement somewhere written on, I forget which wall we put it on, but it's over here somewhere, right? And it's in a really dusty brass 1980s looking frame, because that's the last time we looked at it.
Yeah, the person who's worked here longest, they'll know where it is.
Where it is, and, right? And and that's not what I mean by a mission. But I think coming out of this COVID nightmare that is a shared experience for us, companies of any size have a golden opportunity right now to reassess their place in the universe and what they truly want to be all about. And you mentioned earlier this concept of being reactive, and I think so many companies get into that position, and we all reacted to COVID. Well, now we've adjusted to, we're going to have to live alongside of this for some, indefinite period of time in the future. Hopefully it's going to lessen. Hopefully eventually it will completely go away. But regardless of that, we are no longer reacting to COVID. We are figuring out how to move on and go on regardless of that. And I think a lot of companies, this is the opportunity for them to reevaluate their mission, their purpose. What is the work that they're doing? Why is it important to them and to their customers? And how do they do it? And in doing that reevaluation, that reassessment, engaging the employees who have gone with them through this storm, right? Because that's how you're going to pivot in the most effective way. That's how you're going to re-engage your employees. And that's how you are likely going to find what are their unique contributions that are going to help you build a better, stronger, more durable, more sustainable company.
Brilliant. And do you think that, and you've talked about talent, and obviously this really business is all about, do you think that there are now individuals who exhibit different talents who will shine in this new era as opposed to before?
I do, in fact. I think one of the things that this COVID, I keep calling it a nightmare, this era, it has uncovered for us is that there are in my view, two very mission critical skills or competencies or DNA that both companies and individuals have revealed themselves to demonstrate or not, and have become the mission critical skills for today and tomorrow. And those are resilience and adaptability. And when you hear those words, you go, well, yeah, of course. I mean, when you look back at this whole year, it required us to be both resilient and adaptable on a company level, and the old saying was adapt or die, right? Well, in COVID, we necessarily, met with that reality. So I think the companies and the individuals who have shown themselves to be the most resilient and the most adaptable, which is more than being flexible, right? Because flexible is still sort of a reaction to an outside force. Adaptable says you can throw anything you want at me, COVID or other, bigger competitors, more innovative, smaller, scrappier companies, and I'm going to figure out a way to outmaneuver those external forces and find a way to continue to build a better, stronger, more innovative company. So I think resilience and adaptability are absolutely mission critical for a company to continue to build and scale and grow, and for employees to do the same.
That's so important. Do you think as well, when you think about people who are launching businesses, perhaps as they come out of this particular era, do you think that there is a specific skill set that should be the next person they employ? So so who's the second employee? Who's the first?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Oh, it's so important to get that right? The most important person you're ever going to hire as a small business is the very first person you hire. I'm going to give you an answer that sounds like I'm, just the consultant in me, but the answer truly is it depends, right? There's no one right next person for every single company. And I have to counsel a lot of companies, small and large, on this concept, because their first inclination is I have to hire my first employee or my 1,000th employee, and I want you to go out and find the best candidate. And that's wrong. What you want to find is the right candidate. And the right candidate for you is going to be probably a completely different candidate than, whoever's the right candidate for company X. And the best way to understand who the right candidate is, and yes, there's a job description, right? So there are certain duties and responsibilities and activities that next person needs to go out and execute at a tactical level. But first you have to understand what you possess now. And so I do a lot of work with my clients on capturing, I talked about mission, but really capturing and understanding very, very clearly what that mission truly is. And not skipping that step because it is so foundational, as I said. But once you understand that, then say, okay, if that is what we are aiming for, what's the mission critical DNA that we have to possess and demonstrate in order to get there, right? And really, get very granular, get a whole inventory, a whole laundry list of what that looks like. What are the skills? What's the technical background? What are some of the experiences? What are the attributes? What are the behaviors? All of that DNA. Once you have that list and you say, okay, everything on this list is critical if we are to achieve our mission, now you can evaluate, and this is, I work alongside clients to help them do this. Now you evaluate, if these are all mission critical, what do we already have and what do we lack?
Yeah.
Because now the very next person you hire should not just pile on top of what you're already strong in. While that's important, but there are significant gaps, most likely, that you've uncovered in this process, right? So that next person you hire, especially if it's your first one, you want to hire somebody who complements your existing strengths and helps bring forward some more of those mission critical DNA that you lack. So the right candidate is way more important than the best one.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And you're right, just to replicate yourself. And that is a thing that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of think is like, I'm so busy, I just need 2 of me or 17 of me. And going out and doing that is just
huge mistake. And everyone makes it. Everyone makes it because we have this reflexive need to hire people who look like us, who talk like us, who sound like us, who think like us, who believe what we believe. And it's the worst thing you can do, unless, of course, you don't want to grow.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful because that's exactly that. That's what you are doing. You are baking in.
Yeah.
Business just doing the same thing. And there is no insights coming in from a different way of thinking.
That's right.
Brilliant. And in terms of how you see kind of the future, and again, love your kind of podcasts and how you think about reinventing, actually rather than reverting, which I think is such a great kind of concept in people's brains. You're not going back to where you were. You've got to try and reinvent it. What do you think are the kind of trends coming down? What do you see in terms of people's employability or people's, the natural way that people are going to set businesses up to help people in the talent pool, in the environment of employment?
Yeah, love that question. I think, first of all, I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm about to talk in a very positive way about COVID. So just bear with me for a second.
We can lose the nightmare bit for now.
Yeah, I know. But I think, COVID, this whole era, this whole shared global experience that we are still living through and working through, has uncovered this amazing opportunity. And here comes the optimism, right? Because I work with clients at all levels. I work with solopreneurs and I work for, global organizations that have 75,000 employees. And those bigger organizations, which traditionally had gone with, let's, plug and play, and there's a lot of available talent out there, and we'll just keep backfilling positions. The bigger organizations are seeing farther down the road that where we are headed to is a gig-based economy, and they're planning for that. And what I mean by that is it's no longer about this sort of industrial revolution where everyone is sort of working on this assembly line and we are all interchangeable. Even these bigger global, huge behemoth organizations are recognizing the fact that employees, people don't want to work like that anymore. They don't want to, there was this sort of evolution in the employee from the baby boomers to the, we're the millennials, and there's one after that whose name is, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm proud to be one. But, with every evolution, we sort of look at and we react to and respond to what the employees, what drives them. And so I think companies are finally understanding, and through COVID have been forced to respect at a more, enterprise level, that employees want to be recognized for their individual skills and talents and contributions and passions. And so we're set up now to embrace that and to reward that and to attract that. And so from the employee level, again, I said before, not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur, solopreneur, but it doesn't mean you have to quelch that, that fire within you. I think more and more organizations are going to understand and reach out for individual talents and skill sets that complement where they lack, where they're not as strong, on that sort of mission critical DNA path. So I'm very excited about the future. I think for large companies who are finally truly now respecting individuals, not just because somebody said you have to focus on diversity. They're finally getting what diversity is all about. Yeah. That diversity, that inclusion, that equity, but really on tapping into the unique abilities of employees wherever they may reside, right? Because now we're also in a much more virtual, more remote world. So I'm very excited about the future. I think if you're a large organization, all the way down to a solopreneur, the opportunities for you to play to your strengths and bring your passion to bear in a way that contributes to society and to the economy and returns rewards for you, I think are endless going forward.
Oh, couldn't agree more. I often talk about, this is the best time ever to set up a business. It's actually also perhaps the best time to be an employee too, right? Because as you say, that flexibility, the choice, the options are out there. If you can find the right business to be involved with, and portfolio careers and the ability to spend some hours here and some hours over there, it just means the variety of life is going to be so different too. Claire, I could speak for hours about this. I've got to let you go pretty soon, but I wanted to just fire a couple of quick questions at you if I could.
Sure. Yeah.
We ask pretty much everybody. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received actually came when I was in my early days as a people manager, and they really have informed how I do my business now, which is to get really crystal clear on what it is that you are put in that position to accomplish. And the clearer you are in that longer term horizon, if you will, the much easier your day-to-day decisions and your interactions with your people become. So get real clear on that horizon.
Brilliant. Thank you. Do you have anybody who's kind of inspiration to you? Anybody that you kind of look to as perhaps a guide, somebody who's been there before?
There's so many people, there's so many clients that I have had the privilege and the honor to work with. But I'm going to get a little bit hokey here. I would say my top two heroes are my mom and my dad. My mom, she was a lifetime school teacher, lifelong. She's long since retired now, but that sort of desire and that ability to get children, obviously she was a school teacher, but to get children to a breakthrough and to tap into knowledge that they just had to unlock really has helped inform what I do and how I do it. And then my dad, who was, the first solopreneur I had ever come across, he started his own land surveyor business after working, in a big organization, and decided that wasn't for him. And until the day he retired, the man literally whistled on his way to work because he loved what he did. So if anybody, the titans of industry, the world beaters, and I could go on about Elon Musk. I mean, I love the guy to death and his vision. It comes back to mom and dad.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Listen, Claire, you've been so good. Thanks so much for your time today. I wonder if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do it?
The best way to get in touch with me is my website, which is clairechandler.net. Really soon, I'm going to be releasing a new book, a pretty short book, but it's going to be called The Decision Dashboard. So I will link to that on the website, and it's going to help people do a lot of what we had spoken about earlier, which is sort of identifying your mission critical DNA, and help you drive better, easier, faster decisions.
That's fantastic. It's going to be so important. That's Claire Chandler. Thank you so much for being with us on the Growth Execution podcast this week. That's it for us. Again, do join us next week, where we're going to have even more growth execution tips, actionable ways you can launch, build, and grow your business. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll catch up again next week.